Welcome to Dad.pod. This is our first
Hey.
long format. My name is Chris. This is my
Mhm.
co-host Brian Levins, aka BD. This is our first long format podcast
It
style. We've
is.
done some clips, as you've seen on the
Yeah,
Instagram, on the TikTok,
it's been
at
fun.
thedad.pod. But yeah, we decided to do a long format for this one. We have a lot to say about what has happened so far in the NFL season, and specifically what happened in the Super Bowl. Today, we're going to go over a lot of stuff. We have our reactions to the Super Bowl. We have the reasons why the Niners lost. Talking about Brock Purdy, of course. Kyle Shanahan, if they can be trusted for the future. We have a segment here about the Mount Rushmore of Super Bowl quarterbacks and performers,
Mm.
inspired by Mahomes. And we got a couple of more fun segments at the end here. So it should be a good show. Just a quick introduction since this is our first time doing a long format. Like I said, my name is Chris. I am a soon to be father of a daughter. This is her name over here in the back, if you can see it. Eliana, aka Ellie. Brian, and
It's a
who
good
are you
name.
a dad to?
Yeah, my dad, I have a baby boy. His name is Eli. No relation. And yeah, he's 16 months old. He's built like a future defensive lineman, which
Yep.
is hilarious because my wife is
Yeah.
small and I'm not built like that. And so, but yeah, you saw him. You got to see
You're
him at
also
his at
small,
his
a little bit.
his full power. And so what?
So you're also small in certain areas.
So what?
Hmm?
It's ridiculous. But yeah, it was he's a big boy. So but yeah, he's great. And so but yeah, we are planning on having one more. We're gonna be trying again sometime this year. So we're excited about that.
Cool. Yeah. So our vision with this, the Dad Pod, they were just two dads, kind of playing on the term Dad Bod. As you see, we're not professional athletes, but we're here talking about professional athletes. And like we said, we're fathers here. So follow us on all the social medias. We got YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, all at the thedad.pod. And we appreciate your encouragement. All right, Brian, let's get into it. For those of you that know Brian, he is a big 49ers fan, a diehard 49ers fan. This weekend we got to watch the Super Bowl together. Um, it's hard to see your
Yeah,
friends be depressed. It's hard to see your friends try to be social when they just want to be
hurt.
sad and cry. I'm pretty sure Brian went to the bathroom and
Yeah.
cried for about 10 minutes, unconfirmed, but he was gone for a very long time after the game was over. So,
Sure, I
Brian,
was holding in a lot of stress. So
yeah. I know we'll be unbiased later. We'll do more
amongst
of an
other things.
analytical approach later. But right now, just how does it feel as a
Yeah.
49ers fan, a diehard 49ers fan who's 30, who has only seen the Super Bowl, a Super Bowl victory one time as a baby, 1 year old,
Mhm.
last time the 49ers
As a
won?
baby, I have no
Yeah.
consciousness of that.
Yeah, no consciousness. How does it feel to lose yet again in the Super Bowl as a 49ers fan, especially the way that you guys lost on Sunday?
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to get used to it, which is sad to say. Between
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl losses and NFC Championship game losses, I've now realized I've categorized the way I feel into basically like three stages of grief. The first step is I just skip all sports talk show for about a week, and I become like the most productive human being. I'm sure my wife loves
Hmm.
it. I've become like the most
Yeah.
useful husband and father to my family. I've become the most productive I've been in over like the last 6 months. Just guys as a distraction, I definitely spend a lot of time listening to sports talk shows, and so it does unfortunately distract me at times. My wife isn't a big fan of it, but that's the first step. Second step is I tell myself I'm just like not going to care as much. I'm just not going to care. I'm just not going to care as
Mm-hmm.
much next year, and it won't hurt as much. It's yet to work. I've yet to stop caring as much. I played football from when I was 6 all the way through I was like 18. So this is kind of my way of still connecting to it. I'm obviously we played sports together. I'm super competitive.
Yeah.
We get emotional out there, and so it's fun. I love it. Like I'm fine with it. I'll take the sadness that comes along with it because you get to the exciting moments. You get to cheer and you get to have fun. And then the last step basically by the beginning of March, I start having withdrawals, and I'm just like sad that the football season's over, and I can't wait for it to start again. And so
Mhm.
then we have the drafts coming up in April, and then I just get
Yep.
fully back invested, right back into it, and then just ready to restart the cycle.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot worse things to be addicted to. So NFL is not that bad of a thing.
Yeah,
And I'm sure, yeah, I'm
it's
sure
true. I
your
haven't
wife is
like
very
broken a TV.
excited.
I'm not one of those fans. I
Hmm.
haven't like broken a TV or anything like that. But so we're still good. We're good.
Yeah, you're definitely more of one of those people that suppresses all their feelings and just lets it be inside for the next year. So I
Yeah, that's
think
not
you do
just
the same
related to
thing for
football,
football.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
That's a life thing. So that's a whole different
Hmm.
issue. That's a different
Yeah.
that's a different podcast.
Yeah. Different
So
podcast. Coming soon, maybe. Dad podcast about other
yeah,
things.
fair enough.
Um, yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
It was hard. Like I said, it was hard to see you in that way. I'm a 49ers fan as well. Not as big of a 49ers fan as Brian, but I was a lot more invested this year. I mean, the past like 3-4 years, I've been a lot more invested, and
Mhm.
especially having, just us doing this has allowed me to be more invested, more into football. And yeah, it sucked. It hurt. It hurt to see the game go the way it did. It was so stressful. Um, I almost like would rather have it been a blowout and they lose that way than for it to be just down to the wire, thinking you're going to win, knowing you have to go against Mahomes at the end, in overtime. I just kind of felt like, all right, I already accepted in my heart that this is going to be a bad
Mhm.
result for the 49ers. But yeah, it was a good game nonetheless. It was a good game. It was a fun time. And yeah, there's always next year, I guess. And I think it's better to be the second best team, the second or the first loser, than to be the Cowboys or to be any other team that just can't even get there. So at least we get to celebrate and have
Yeah,
some investment in the Super Bowl instead of just being there just to drink or just to eat food. So
true.
it was good.
It's a lot more
Um,
enjoyable. A lot more stressful. It's a lot more stressful, but it is a lot more enjoyable.
yes, for sure, for sure. Um,
What was
yeah, so
your
we talked.
just out of
Oh,
curiosity? What was your kind of like initial reaction just to the game in general? Like not as a 49ers fan
mhm.
specifically, but just as like a fan of football, as a fan of the NFL, watching the game completely unbiased. Like what was your just reaction to the game?
Yeah, my first reaction was it was a great script. Um, whether the NFL scripted or not, yeah, it was great. I thought it was cool. It wasn't a high scoring of a game. I think I had it 28-24, you 27-23, I think. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe 27-24. But yeah, it wasn't that kind of game, but it was very intense. The defenses both showed out. I was surprised a little bit that the
It
49ers
did.
defense played as well as they did. The Chiefs they've been cooking all year in the postseason. They've held a lot of the receivers, the elite receivers that they played against so far in the postseason, to
Mm-hmm.
minimal yardage, and they did the same. It was a weird game because even Kelsey wasn't that involved in the first half. You had a bunch of fumbles. It seemed like the Chiefs just couldn't hold on to the ball at all, any of them. Pacheco,
No.
Mahomes, so many mistakes. More turnovers than I expected. A lot less capitalization on those turnovers. I think in any other game, you could have seen the 49ers up by probably 3 scores if they capitalized. But that Chiefs defense, man, just like they've been doing it all year, they saved that. They saved them. They were the reason they won. I think, obviously, till the end, till Mahomes. But yeah, it was a good game. I thought it was cool. I'm not as big on the idea that it was like boring or not a fun game as other people might be, but it was intense and it was very strategic. And yeah, I'd prefer that style of game than like a blowout, obviously, or something else that is kind of one sided. But yeah, I thought it was a cool game. I thought it was a great game. I think both teams showed that they are the two best teams in the NFL. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it was a good game. What about you?
Yeah, same. I think we got every ounce of football that we could get out of that game. Literally,
Yeah.
like the game
Mm-hmm.
ended with 3 seconds left in overtime. We got 5 full quarters of the highest caliber of football that we can watch. Like you said, there was a lot of mistakes, so I mean that was a little unfortunate on both teams. It was kind of an uglier game,
Mm-hmm.
But we got to see the best players in the world for 5 full quarters. I didn't agree with the football gods' final decision, but they definitely wrote up a good one. They wrote up an instant classic, and so I'm excited about that. I can say that it was just it was a fun game to watch. We had people who were here. I mean, you were here, obviously. Your wife was here, and then we had people who just weren't like football fans at all. Like just a regular Super Bowl party. You're gonna have people who are just there for the fellowship. Those who are there just for the food and everything. And I felt like we had a lot of people who were legitimately interested in like what was going on, who are not
Mm-hmm.
football or NFL fans, who are just like, oh, this is stressful. Like this is intense. And
Yeah.
it was cool to see that. It was cool to see. I love football. Football to me is the greatest sport on earth, and so it was cool to see it kind of get the respect that it deserves. And then of course, Usher showed out. So we've had some rough halftime performances, but we had that was a good one. I'll give him credit for that one.
It was. Yeah, I was more excited for Asher's performance
Yeah.
than the game itself. Um, and I was right on every single song that he performed. I guessed beforehand with my wife, and I was right on every single song. I'm a big Usher fan. Uh, I just want to give a shout out real quick to my little brother who's an Usher hater. A lot of slander on there. I just want to tell him that he's wrong. So comment and say that he's wrong. The Usher is one of the best artists of our generation. But yeah, it was a good game. It was a good time. Again, a little bit more analytically. Why do you think the 49ers lost?
Oh man, I was thinking about this for a little while. I'm trying to figure out like what were the reasons for them to lose. I think I've listened to a lot of things. What I've come down to it's really just two things. To beat Mahomes, you need two things to happen. You need to be perfect, and you need the ball to bounce your way.
Yeah.
Neither of those things happened. First quarter, offensive penalties, offsides, false starts, holding calls, constantly
Yep.
put Brock Purdy in that offense, behind the line of scrimmage, behind the sticks. And when you're going against a defense like that, like you're not going to be able to capitalize. And when you have
Right.
those penalties, it just ends drives. You can't have mistake. You can't have muffed punts. I wouldn't really say that was a mistake. It was that was more of like one of the unfortunate bounces of the
Yeah.
football. It wasn't even the returner who ended up
One in a
touching it,
million.
but it's kind of
Mhm.
hit the guy's foot. It was just like it was a 1 in a million thing. It was unfortunate. They have rules for that. They need to be able to clear out better. But I mean, it hit him just directly in the foot, so it was an unfortunate bounce. But we
Yeah.
had an unfortunate bounce to get here, so those things happen,
Fair.
and you can't have a man blow his Achilles trying to get on the field. You can't have one of your best defenders
Yeah.
blow his Achilles walking onto the field. And
For real.
so that was like probably one
Something
of
we
those
would do.
heartbreaking things. I was watching, yeah, that's something like a 45-year-old man would do,
Yeah.
trying to help somebody move. It was,
Mhm.
I was watching the mic'd up of that. That was one of the most
Yeah.
heartbreaking things to watch is Fred Warner just like cry out like, oh my God, no. Like everyone knew what happened, and I was like, to go
Yeah.
out there and just to respect to the Niners players to be able to go out there, such a blow of like, especially after what happened to them last year with all of their quarterbacks getting knocked out.
Mhm.
There had to be an inch of a thought in their mind, like, oh my God, like this is happening again. Like
Yeah.
you've got to be kidding me. Like the most random freak accidents are going to be the reason why we're going to lose the Super Bowl. And so, but they played hard. Like I respect, like they continue to go out there. They played hard. They played well. But yeah, you to beat Mahomes, you need both those things to happen. You need to be perfect. You can't have miscues. You can't miss assignments, and you have to have a little bit of luck. And unfortunately, neither of those things happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unfortunate. The Achilles thing was pretty wild. I know we were kind of making fun of it in the beginning. But yeah, just to see it being an Achilles, such a severe type of injury, to really such a good player. He's been balling out. Like he was one of the
Yeah,
reasons why we
he
won that
won
Packers
that
game.
Green Bay Packers game.
And so, yeah, big blow. It just seems the 49ers continue to have the type of luck where the injury bug just bites them in the butt the worst times. Debo gets hurt every single game. I feel like Debo is like the AD of the NFL. such a great player, but just injured all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like you mentioned last year, all the quarterbacks going down, and Jimmy being hurt all the time when he was there. So just yeah, it sucks. It's ironic. CMC is the only one that's healthy for the 49ers consistently when he was the one that was always hurt when he was in Carolina.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned some of the reasons they lost. What do you think about everyone's favorite game manager, Brock Purdy? How do you think he rate his performance?
So, well, sorry. Before I get to Brock Purdy, can I have
Hmm.
one biased like take real quick?
Go ahead.
Just like
You
one take
deserve
as
it.
a
After the
49ers
loss, you
fan.
deserve it.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one biased take. I
Go
need to
ahead.
be able to get this because and you can tell me at the end if I'm being too much of a fan, or you can tell me if it's a fair take.
Okay.
The NFL has to do a better job of the referees calling the game consistently. Not that they're going to make every single call and they're going to be perfect. That's fine. We understand that. But calling the game consistently, starting from the first week of preseason through the Super Bowl.
Hmm. Okay.
You can't have referee crews that referee differently than other crews do. And I know it's
Yeah.
difficult and it's hard, but you can't go into a game with like we're just not going to get this call because they just don't like that call. Like they're just not going to call it.
Right.
This is the second time that the 49ers and Chiefs have played in the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
with the Chiefs having the most penalized offensive line in the league, and the 49ers defensive line being one of the most dominant pass rushes in the league, and not a single holding call was called on the Chiefs. Not a
Yeah.
single one. And now
And
I've heard of
there was
the
a lot of
argument
examples.
of, hey, there was a lot of examples to say.
A lot of times it could have been called.
Don't
Yeah.
even need to get into that.
Hmm.
Don't even need to get into that. The argument that I've heard doesn't even make sense. The argument that I kept hearing was like, well, they didn't call it on either team. It's like, well, first of all, that's not true. Trent Williams, one of the greatest left tackles to ever live, got
Yeah.
a holding call in the first penalty in the first quarter. That they
Hmm.
were first and 15 or second and 15. Brock Purdy made an amazing move and found George Kittle on the opposite side of the field to pick up a
Yep.
big first down.
Hmm. Yep.
Wiped away from a holding.
Would have been his
Well, first
best
of all,
play of
that's
the
just
game.
not
Yeah.
true. And then yeah, it would have been his best play. We
Hmm.
talked about it. And the other thing that just it doesn't make sense about it is it's not even just because you're not calling it on both teams, because every team builds their team differently. Every single team decides like, hey, we're going to build our defense this way, and this is how we're going to do it. The Kansas City Chiefs, the way they built their team is like, hey, we're going to have one dominant pass rusher in Chris Jones,
Yep.
and we're going to have elite corners and elite secondaries and elite linebackers. The San Francisco 49ers, like, we're going to spend $100 million a year on our defensive line and our pass rush. So if you just decide, like, we're just not going to call holding penalties on either team, you've now eliminated like $100 million of their roster. It doesn't matter. It's not even, because the way they built their team is dependent on the fact of like, our job is to get to the quarterback or to force penalties. That way we get our decent. Travarius Ward's a great corner, but kind of our underwhelming corners kind of out of the bind. And so that's my only complaint. My only complaint is just have every crew be consistent with the way you're going to call the game. That way you know how to build your team. Because if you're just going to not call things because you don't like to, you need to know beforehand.
Yeah.
Is that too biased? Is that too much of a fan take? Is that fair? What do you think?
No, I think it's fair. I don't even think it's biased at all. Because I think you can make that case for any game, not just the 49ers in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I did notice that too. There were a lot of instances in which the Chiefs could have been called for holding. I think I saw a video showing at least like 6 that were clear holds that just didn't get called. Yeah, I agree. I think there was even to show there wasn't bias. I think there was even like a play that I called out during the game, where I was like, "You just gotta let him play." I think it was overtime. I was like, "You just gotta let him play." It's overtime.
It was the overtime, the holding call. Yeah,
the holding call. And I mean, I didn't
Defensive
feel like that was a holding.
on Chiefs.
Like I didn't feel like it was that much of a hold. maybe, but also too, like, only if you're slowing it down. It's in fast motion. It just, you just gotta let it play. Overtime of the Super Bowl. But
I
yeah,
agree.
just the inconsistency of the calls, just in that game alone, but then also, yeah, like you're saying, throughout the season. I think it is hard. Obviously, there's different crews, there's different, um, just perspectives and views, when the refs are on the field. So I don't know if it's possible for it to be called straight down the line, but I definitely think there
Mhm.
can be more emphasis in that, and just more emphasis in, yeah, this is how we're going to do things, as a collective, you know. But part of me,
Yeah.
like, just to play devil's advocate, I kind of feel a little bit that's part of the game. Like, that's part of the excitement of it, is that there is human error,
Mhm.
right? There is just like different,
Yeah.
um, yeah, styles of refereeing. Like, if you look at the NBA, there's some refs like Scott Foster who hates Chris Paul and never wants to let him see him win, so he always calls the game differently, as opposed to other referees. But I think part of that human error kind of makes it cool. It kind of makes it, you just never know what's going to happen. So unfortunate when your team
Can I
doesn't
have
win.
an argument for that?
Go ahead.
If because I agree, I 100% agree. It is
Yeah.
exciting. You need to be able to coach around knowing like the crews are announced before the game. You
Mm.
should know like kind of their tendencies and everything like that. I think that's completely fair. If that's the case though, because which is I mean, it is true. You should. I think both teams should be able to have to come to an agreement on a referee crew. Obviously, they get rated and they're voted in based off of their performance. But if you know for a fact, like, hey, this crew doesn't like to call like this doesn't call holding penalties, and I have a great defensive line who's going to dominate the opposing offensive lineman, like I'm not going to vote
Yeah.
for them. I'm not going to have them in here.
True.
And it'd be a little gamesmanship, which would be cool. You know, it'd be like almost like when you go to court and the two lawyers are trying to eliminate jurors that they don't think is
Mm.
gonna vote their way. And so I think it would add a little bit of gamesmanship. It would
Yeah.
keep the strategy alive, but make it a little bit more fair as well.
Yeah. That's fair. I think that's a good argument. Um, it's one of those situations that I feel like no matter what we say, nothing's gonna happen. They're just gonna let it be the way it needs to be.
No,
But
oh god, no,
yeah,
no, no, no.
definitely,
It's not gonna change.
definitely,
But it helps me,
it makes sense.
vent a little bit.
Yeah, no, it makes
Yeah.
sense, and I think you're on to something. Um, and yeah, I think NFL doesn't do as good of a job as other leagues with that, but I think they do. It would be cool to see that there's maybe a transition in, just how things are handled as far as the referee goes. I know the NBA has like the reviews, the 2 minute reviews that they do after the fact, and they do like a
Mm-hmm.
report. So it'd be cool to see the NFL kind of implement something like that, just to kind of get everyone on the same page. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit back ago, we touched on Purdy and Shanahan. So I just want to get your thoughts, not as a biased fan, but just as a normal football fan. How do you rate Purdy's performance? And what do you think about Kyle Shanahan's, coaching strategies and the decisions he made going down the line?
Yeah. What I'll say is I have a couple of opinions on that. With Purdy,
And then with that, I
I
have
think
a question for you regarding Purdy and
okay.
Shanahan, in the future of the 49ers. So just give me a basic take about the game, and then I'll
Okay.
have something for you moving forward.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think Purdy did his job.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. I think going into the game plan had to have been the game plan had to have been you can't be the reason why we're going to lose. You
Hmm.
can't make mistakes. You can't give this defense opportunities to turn the ball over and gave Mahomes extra chances. And he did his job. I mean, at the end, Mahomes made more plays than him than he did, and that's the
Yeah.
reason why they won.
Hmm.
But you can also say Mahomes made more mistakes than he did, and if they ended up would have winning, then they would have said Mahomes played poorly in that Super Bowl. And so, what else? Yeah, what I say? 55 minutes of that game, Brock Purdy was the better quarterback on the field. He played better
Hmm.
for 50 to 55
Yeah.
minutes. Unfortunately, there was 20 minutes left because of overtime. and
Right.
Mahomes used that extra time to separate the two. And I mean, Mahomes is phenomenal. He's the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. Very real
Yeah.
possibility of coming down as the greatest quarterback we've ever seen.
True.
But I was very impressed as a not even a full second year starter, going up against the Goliath of the NFL,
Mhm.
who's been in 4 Super Bowls now at this point, has just steamrolled everybody, and to outplay him for the majority of the game and to hold his own. At no point did Brock Purdy look nervous. Did he look gun
No.
shy? Did he look like he really
Mhm.
made a mistake? I mean, he definitely had some plays that they probably went back, but I think we saw a lot of things where it's like, if other people performed better around him, which is kind of the weird thing to say, considering his cast that's
Yeah.
around him, but if other people would have done their job better, you know, he would have
Like who? Call out
rolled in
names.
that game.
Call out names. Call out the smoke.
CMC, you can't fumble. You can't fumble in the first
No.
drive.
Yeah, you can't.
Uh, they were moving. They were dicing the Chiefs up.
Yeah.
You cannot fumble the ball at that point.
Yeah.
They are known for starting fast. You
Mm-hmm.
needed to start fast, and we talked about it last week. That the keys of the
Yeah, that was one
game
of
is
my
that
takes.
you
Yeah.
need to score on that first drive, one of your takes.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot, with the momentum going the way it is, you cannot fumble the football at that point. Debo Samuel,
Yeah.
he had a couple balls hit his hands. Got to pull those in.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't even know the name of the backup right guard. Backup right guard lost the game. I can tell you that right now.
He missed that block. Yeah.
Chris to just forget to block Chris Jones.
Yeah. Their
You're
best
the
player.
reason why
Mhm.
they lost. Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
I was able to watch the play after.
I saw that.
Brandon
Yeah.
Ayuk snatched that corner's ankles and was running
Mm-hmm.
wide open
Wide open.
in the end zone.
Yeah.
And if someone pushes Chris Jones, that's a touchdown in overtime.
Oh yeah. Game's up.
Just
Mm-hmm.
touches him, puts a hand on him. They score a touchdown there, and so I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, you can point to again CMC, Devo, the right
What
guard.
about? I'll give you one. The person I'm blaming the most, Kyle Shanahan. What are your thoughts on him?
Here's the thing.
Let me just get into my question actually with that.
So
Um,
okay.
just to go over, overview on Shanahan. So Shanahan's been the coach for a while now. He's been in a couple Super Bowls. Do you trust him for the future? Say 10 years down the road, do you trust Shanahan to be the franchise coach, right? The Bill Belichick, the Andy Reid. Do you trust him to be there long term?
100% yes. There's not a
Wow.
doubt in my mind
No
that
matter
he
what,
should be the
even if
coach
they
moving
lose next
forward.
year.
And here's so what? Even if they lose next year, I mean, it depends on who they lose to, obviously. But let me
Okay.
okay. 2 things can be true. Kyle Shanahan was outcoached during the Super Bowl. That is 100% unequivocally true. What's also true is he's the second best coach in the NFL. That is also true. He has been in
Yeah.
3 Super
Okay.
Bowls.
Fair.
3 Super Bowls. Can you just do me a favor, Chris? Do me a favor. Name the quarterback and coach duo that Kyle Shanahan has had to play against in all 3 of his Super Bowls. 1 in Atlanta as an offensive coordinator, and then 2 in the
That's
Super
true.
Bowl with the 49ers.
The
Who
two
are the
best of all
coaches
time.
and the quarterbacks that he had to go against?
Yeah.
The 2 best of all time.
That's true. It's like going against Jordan and Kobe with
here's
Phil.
a thought. Maybe, just maybe, if he doesn't have to play the greatest quarterback to ever live and the greatest head coach to ever live, they win those games. Maybe.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Okay.
With he's going with Matt Ryan, who's not a Hall of Famer. Kyle Shanahan
No.
made him an MVP. He's not a Hall of
Right.
Famer.
No.
You
he's not.
have Jimmy Garoppolo, who will never play a starting snap in the NFL ever again outside of injury.
Probably not.
And then you have Brock Purdy. You have Mr. Irrelevant, which I think he's great. Don't get me wrong. I think Brock
Yeah,
Purdy's great. We're
yeah.
going to talk about him a little bit more.
Yeah.
But still, like those are your quarterbacks, and you're going against Tom Brady, and you're going against Patrick Mahomes, and you're trying to outthink Bill Belichick, and you're trying to outthink Andy Reid. So
Mm-hmm.
two things can be true. He can get out coached in the Super Bowl, and he can still be the second best coach in the NFL. John Harbaugh, I think we all agree, is a great head
Yeah,
coach.
he is.
He's a Super Bowl winning head coach. He had the number one defense in the NFL this year. He now has a two-time MVP at
MVP.
quarterback, the most
Mm-hmm.
dynamic quarterback we've ever seen.
Mm.
They got waxed by the Kansas City Chiefs. No, they only lost by 7, but that game was like the Chiefs did whatever they wanted,
Yeah.
whenever they wanted. The game was never
Mm-hmm.
in doubt. Kyle Shanahan, for a lot of the game, did outcoach Andy Reid. I mean that play call to get Juwan Jennings to
Debatable.
throw to CMC,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great that's a great call at that time, you know.
Yeah,
And
that
so
was a
yeah, I mean
wild
I just
play.
think he gets a lot of hate. He gets a lot of hate, which I get it because there are things that he could have done differently. Yes, it's so easy to like blame Kyle Shanahan when things don't go right. When it's like, dude, he's made the call correctly
Mm.
both times. Like he got Emmanuel Sanders behind both safeties in 2019, and Jimmy Garoppolo just overthrew him. He got Brandon Ayuk wide open in the
Yep.
end zone overtime, and his right guard just forgot to block the
Mm-hmm.
best player on the Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Yeah, he got flamed
So it's
for it too.
like,
Did
I
you see
mean,
that?
yeah, could he have done? What was that?
By his own he got flamed for it by his own teammate on social media. I don't know if you saw that,
Yeah,
but yeah, he
yeah,
was like blaming him. We would have won that game if he would have just made that block. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I was hungover." And so, yeah, it was pretty obvious as to that he messed up his one job.
yeah. Yeah, it's like, dude, I mean, he's the backup. I get it, and like, but you have to be ready for something like that, and like, just don't
Yeah,
forget to block their best player. Like, it's not
yeah,
that
he didn't
hard.
even need to
And
stop him. Just
so,
give him two
like in
more seconds.
hindsight, yeah, like in hindsight, it's super easy just to be like, hey, Kyle Shanahan should have ran the ball. Like we were saying that, like during our
Yeah.
watching the game, like man, he should have ran the ball. But then now watching the play and seeing it in its entirety, you're like, oh crap, like he did make the right call. Like he did make it, but you can't if you would have known his players wouldn't have executed the play the way it was supposed to be done,
Yeah.
then yeah, of course he wouldn't have done that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he gets way too much hate. But it's just it's easy. It's easy to blame him. That 28-3 comeback, people are gonna just continue to go back to that, and which is weird because he's the only offensive coordinator to ever get a Super Bowl loss on his record, instead of a head coach.
True.
But yeah, it's yeah, that's my couch at hand. We'll take there.
Yeah. All right. So just final answer then. You trust him for the next 10 years to be the 49ers coach. He's the guy.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. You're convincing me a little bit. I think you made some great points. I think, in my opinion, this next year is what dictates his future. If it's anything other than a Super Bowl, I think they let him go. I don't even know who they would replace him with. Like you said, he's an elite level coach. He's one of the best. I don't really know who out there would be better than him. But yeah, I just feel like this year it's Super Bowl or bust. And maybe if it's a competitive Super Bowl again, like this one was, right? Just a couple plays they would have won. They keep him, but I just don't really see them keeping him. It's either him or Purdy. I feel like, um, I know I had a take. It's a little bit ridiculous about Kirk Cousins replacing Purdy, um, but I think you have to go one or the other because, like you said before, right? Like it is easy to blame Shanahan, but there were a lot of decisions he did make correctly, but he also made incorrectly, right? And just his style that he's shown to not remember what got him there, right? He decides to not run the football anymore when you have the best running back in the league, right? Even just from a clock management
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, like why are you not trying to give Mahomes as little time as possible? You know. Um, so yeah, I think he's a great head coach. I think there is a lot riding on next season. If they lose before the NFC Championship game, I think he's gone. If they make it to the Super
Which
Bowl,
he's
he made it
never
by
done,
himself.
by the way.
But yeah, true. He's never done. He's
He's
never done.
never not made it to the NFC Championship
Um,
game.
but he also has the Avengers right now in the 49ers. so it's a little bit easy to make it to the
True.
NFC game, especially with a weak NFC.
Mhm.
But I mean, people are getting better, right? You look at the Packers, right? You have Jordan Love coming up, CJ Stroud. Um, so there are a lot more threats for the 49ers, I think, moving forward. I do think they're the favorites next year. I do think Shanahan is probably the second best coach in the NFL right now, like you said. But I'm just a little bit more iffy on it than you are. And I think it's going to be interesting to
Okay.
see how the next year goes and to see what they do with Purdy if he progresses, right? But as they are now, I think the 49ers are capable of winning as long as they don't play Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, right? As long as it's any other
Yeah.
team than the
That
Chiefs.
literally goes for everybody, though.
It goes
Like,
for
literally
unless you're Joe Burrow,
everybody.
unless you're Joe
Unless
Burrow,
you're Joe Burrow.
Big Dick Joe,
unless you're
unless you're
unless you're
him,
Joe Burrow. Big
that's
Dick
his
Joe.
kryptonite. Yeah, that's
Oh
his
gosh.
kryptonite. Unless you're him,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay. So you have trust in Shanahan. I just mentioned Purdy. Do you have trust in Purdy? Do the 49ers find their franchise quarterback finally after Jimmy, after Trey, after Alex Smith, after all these unsuccessful quarterbacks? Is Brock Purdy the future?
Yeah, that one's the one I'm less certain about, but I still feel good about.
Yeah,
I'm not as strong as my Shanahan take because we've seen him have success
with
over a
everybody.
longer period of time. What I will say is, I mean, I'll take the guy who's been excellent in 90% of his games in his career,
Yeah.
and has been. I mean, he's had a few bad games for sure. I mean,
Hmm.
every quarterback does.
Yeah.
He's had two comeback victories in the playoffs.
Hmm.
One of those games, he put them on his back. Uh, and I'll take the guy who outplayed Patrick Mahomes for the first 50 to 55 minutes of the Super Bowl. Like, I'll take that. Like, I will 100% take that guy. And I do think, and the only reason why I'm not as strong with him as I am with Shanahan is just there's so not enough tape there. It's been
Yeah.
really just like a year and a half. I think kind of what
Right.
you were leading into with how is he going to perform this second year, his second full year as a starter.
Hmm.
That'll be really interesting. I think if we see him progress, here's kind of like my thing with it is if he progresses and gets better, then there's no doubt that he's the franchise quarterback, and they will have to pay him whatever they decide to pay him. If he stays the same, then you may have to move on because the team will get worse
Yeah.
around him once
Hmm.
they pay him. Like
Yes. Right.
that happens with everybody. So if he stays the
Yeah.
same, like you're going to have to move on. And obviously, if he
Yeah.
regresses, he regresses. You know, and
Right.
you move on at that point. But I mean, that's the tough part about being Mr. Irrelevant. You can make it to an NFC Championship game, and you can make it to a Super Bowl in in your first 2 years, and he's going to have 1 year left to be excellent for the entire season before they pay him. Much worse quarterbacks have gotten paid much sooner
Oh
and
yeah.
for worse reasons. Daniel Jones
Mhm.
makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Just remind everybody of that.
I'm pretty sure
And
I'm better
so
than Daniel Jones.
I
Yeah.
DD3.
Hmm.
It could have been D3.
I'm
You
pretty
could have
sure.
been D3.
I'm pretty sure I'm better than
But
Daniel Jones.
and so
Cam Newton's probably better than Daniel Jones.
so it's yeah, probably. So I mean that's the tough part that the world that he's living in right now is that he's going to have to
Yeah.
be amazing his entire career every single year. But I think if
Which
he
is so
does
weird.
if he does what he does this year, it's
It's so
weird.
weird.
It's unfair. I mean, it's hard to find a guy as good as he's been and has the leadership qualities that he has the humility. I mean, he's the CEO. Like he's exactly what you'd want from a quarterback. He's going to take
Yeah.
all the responsibility. He's going to take none of the credit. All the players are going to love him. He's going to pass on all the credit to everybody else. He's smart.
Hmm.
He's a quick processor. I don't care if he has a underrated arm or like he doesn't have a cannon for an arm. That is the
Yeah.
least important quality for a quarterback. Can you make every throw? Cool. I don't care how fast it gets there.
Yeah.
I don't care if you can make a 70-yard Hail Mary play. You're cool.
Especially
You
with the
can
type of
make
offense that they
the
have. He doesn't need
least.
to have a cannon.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's all about timing and it's all about precision and it's all about accuracy. It's all about understanding the reasoning for everything. And he came out. It took not Brock Purdy. It took Matt Ryan until his second year to really excel in that offense. Jimmy
Mhm.
Garoppolo just never got better. He just was the same forever.
Hmm.
That was the most frustrating thing about it, is that he was just
Yeah.
mediocre forever.
Yeah.
Brock
Yeah,
Purdy
for
hit
sure.
the ground running. I was like, oh, I know exactly what this offense does. And it's an extremely complex offense with all the motion that they have in there, all the different roles that they have. And for him to be able to go in there as a rookie and be like, no, I have this. Like, I understand what we're doing. So that's why I have trust that he's going to get better. I would like for Shanahan to coach him up a little bit more, help him to be able to make more calls at the line of scrimmage, be able to have
Mm.
multiple plays, to be able to audible a little bit more and trust him a little bit more with that. So that will come with time. That's the one thing we really didn't see a whole ton with that.
No.
If he does that, then I mean, sky's the limit. And with how smart he is, sky's the limit with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a good take. I think I kind of agree on a lot of your points. I said it was weird because it's like he has the most expectation on anyone in the NFL that should have like the least amount of expectation. You know, like I can see that
Yeah.
you give that to C.J. Stroud. I can see that you give that to Williams coming in next year, right? Burrow,
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Lawrence, all these guys that are supposed to be franchise quarterbacks already. But this guy, like, it really shouldn't even be playing. Like, if it wasn't for freak injuries, Trey was supposed to be the guy. Trey Lance was supposed to be their quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
right? Jimmy was supposed to be the quarterback. So he really shouldn't even be playing. Um, and to be where he's at now, like, is a testimony to his or testament to his ability, right, to be able to play and to handle that offense. But yeah, it's just weird to me. Like, there's so much expectation, so much blame. Even this whole debate about him being a game manager. Like, what's wrong with him being a game manager when he's the last pick of the draft, the sixth or seventh quarterback drafted in his draft, right? I can't even name any of the quarterbacks that were drafted ahead of him. And like,
No.
yeah, he's doing his thing, And like you said, he wasn't the reason that they lost. I don't. For me personally,
Correct.
I don't know if I keep him long term. Shanahan has shown really to have success with like any quarterback. And it makes me. I've never been a big believer of Trey Lance at all, but it makes me curious to see what would have happened had he been healthy and he be in this role. I don't think they would have gone as far with Trey Lance as they did with Purdy in either season. But
No.
yeah, that's what I was talking about with Kirk Cousins, right? Like Kirk Cousins brings up this thing where a little bit more veteran experience may not be better than Purdy. Maybe it is. I don't know. It depends on your opinion, but yeah, I feel like Purdy's in this situation where you said he has one more year right before he starts to get paid, and it's the way the 49ers are set up, right? I said they have the Avengers. They have so many Hall of Fame, maybe 4 or 5 Hall of Fame type players on their roster right now. Is Purdy good enough to warrant like letting one of those guys go, right? Because if they have to pay him, it's the same thing that happens with the Chiefs, right? Where you're now paying Mahomes and Kelsey, and you can't afford Hill, and he leaves, right? So it's pretty worth keeping over an Ayuk, right? Who's already expressed some subtle like frustration today or yesterday,
Yeah.
right? Is he worth keeping over Fred Warner, over these kind of guys that Fred Warner's a little bit older, but just bigger name players, right? Um, and I'm not sure about that because I feel like they can just get any quarterback. Good. You have
My
something?
my
Go ahead.
response would be, there is only like three quarterbacks that I would pay like max contracts to. Obviously Mahomes,
Yeah.
obviously Joe Burrow, and
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson's kind of like out on that little, just because his play style is so different.
Yeah.
The system's kind of built completely around him. So like if that's what you want to do, then I guess you pay him. But we haven't seen
Yeah.
it work necessarily yet up to this point. And
Mm-mm.
so I mean everybody else, Jalen Hurts, like he played good once, and he's been okay, I guess, the rest of his career. Kirk Cousins has been pretty good his entire career. Daniel
He's
Jones
slightly
was
better than
decent
Jimmy. Yeah.
1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like, they have all these like, you have all of these pretty good quarterbacks making top dollar money, and it's like, if
Yeah.
that's what you're going to, I wouldn't do that for anybody. outside of those three quarterbacks that I named. And so I think with Brock Purdy, I think you go in there and you just be completely honest and be like, hey, look, we took a chance on you. We're the team who drafted you. We drafted you last, but we still drafted you.
Yeah.
We put you in a great situation. We got rid of Trey Lance, who we invested 3 first-round picks in. We just our whole future is like, oh, we don't need him anymore. We have you. Like the amount of trust that they put into him, and I think the relationship that he has with Kyle. I think we've really seen he enjoys coaching Brock Purdy more than he's enjoyed coaching anybody else up to this point. From what you
Yeah.
can kind of see.
Hmm.
So I think this. I mean, I hope they have an honest conversation. But like, look, we can't pay you 50-60 million dollars a year. Um, can you take a hometown discount for what we've done and what we did for you up to this point, and know like, hey, like we can continue to put an elite roster around you, and we can continue to compete at the highest level. And I think if they can do that, I am all dude. Sign him for 10 years for all I care. Like if you can get him to take a discount, you know, he's a Christian man. You don't need all that money. You don't need all that money. More
It's
money, more
fair.
problems. You don't need all that.
Yeah.
And so they should bring out the Bible and tell them like, look, it's hard for a rich man to get into heaven. And
He
so
does live in the Bay, though.
maybe
It's going to take half his money.
be a little. That's fine. That's fine. You know, you can live off 25 mil. You can live off 30, 35 mil.
I do it right now,
You
and I'm
know,
pretty fine.
you don't need to
Yeah.
take. Yeah, you don't. You're so dumb. You don't need to take every single dollar and then be mediocre for
Yeah.
the next 5 or 6 years. And so if they do that, I'm fine. If he for some, which I don't see him doing it, but if he decides like, hey, I want a max contract type of deal, then I'm like, no,
Hmm.
you're not
Yeah,
one of
that's what I
those
was
three
going to
guys.
say.
So no.
Yeah, I think he's not there. He's not on that. He's not a max level quarterback. He's a good quarterback on a
No.
very good team, but he's. I mean, I don't really. I mean, maybe next year we'll see. But he hasn't really shown to be special. I think he's just really good. You know, I have him
Yeah, I
maybe
agree.
like
I think he's
second,
really good.
second or yeah, second or third tier quarterback for me right now. Right. Um, but yeah, he's not one of those guys. He's not a Burrow. He's not a Mahomes, and I don't really believe in Allen, but he's not an Allen, right? I don't even think he's like a Herbert. Herbert's just in a bad situation, but just talent wise. So yeah, I wouldn't pay him. And I also don't like. I wonder too, like, what other team right now would even pay Purdy more money than the 49ers? You know, because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't feel like if Purdy was to go, let's just say to Pittsburgh, right? Um, like he's not going to be good in Pittsburgh. He's not what they need. So I don't really see their as good as he is and as much you know success as he has had. I don't see a big market for Purdy right now, moving forward next year. If he wins the Super
Which
Bowl
I think
next
helps the
year,
Niners out.
oh for sure. If he wins the Super Bowl, then maybe we see lower level team just kind of throw a bag at him just to have it. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. But I agree. I think if they can get him
Yeah.
on a discount, if they don't have to get rid of any other player that is a little bit more valuable to their team, then yeah, I can see him being the guy there for a while, you know, and just kind of give him, maybe like a 5, 6 year contract just to see how things go for the foreseeable future, because it is going to be interesting to see where his ceiling is, right? Like, is he already at his ceiling, like where he's going to be, or is he going to develop into an elite level quarterback? And he might either. I mean, he might either way. Like, he might just be. This is how good he's going to be. Like with Jimmy, we knew we were going to get with Jimmy. We were going to get with Purdy, and it's just a better version of Jimmy, right? And that's fine. That could still win you a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
but he may not be
I agree.
a Hall of Fame type of quarterback, or he'll be maybe like like a Ben Roethlisberger to me, like at his peak, right? Won some Super Bowls, good quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, but isn't like Drew Brees, isn't Peyton Manning, isn't Joe Montana, isn't Tom Brady, but he's like that lower level tier, but is a great Hall of Fame quarterback. It was
Mm-hmm.
great for his franchise. Um, yeah, and so I think speaking of someone that's great for their franchise, Patrick Mahomes. We talked about him a little bit earlier,
Oh,
the
yeah.
baby goat. We have a cool segment that I want to get into. everyone talks about their goats. Right now, it's Brady for me. I think Brady for you too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Brady. Okay. Yeah, but just in general, when it comes to Super Bowls, we've seen Mahomes in the Super Bowl. It seems like every year now. So I have a question for you. It's for our segment. We'll do a little. Maybe we can enter a drum roll here or something. But it's a Mount Rushmore of QB Super Bowl performers. So Mount Rushmore, 4 presidents. If you didn't know your history, so I want to get your opinion on who's on your Mount Rushmore solely Super Bowl performances, not career, just Super Bowl performances. So if you want to throw Nick Foles in there, you can. I almost did. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and start off and give me your Mount Rushmore of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks?
Yeah, so I'll start off with saying I almost threw Nick Foles in there as well for that performance. But my
Mm-hmm.
rule that I made for myself is that you have to have more than one. You have to have more than
Oh,
one Super Bowl
interesting.
victory, and so and this is my from my top to bottom. Actually, did I may have broken that rule? No, I didn't. I didn't. For my top, this is for like top from bottom as well. So I'm going one, two, three, four.
Okay.
Brady, obvious.
Yeah, no
Seven
brainer.
wins, the greatest
Has to
comeback in
be.
NFL history. Speaks for itself. Yeah. Until Mahomes does more than otherwise, there's nothing else to say.
Yeah.
Number two, and this is where you might get a little bit of flack, or I might get a little bit of flack, because I feel like people are going to put Patrick Mahomes there,
Yeah. You
and
should.
I would say
Hmm.
that would be strongly undeserved. I'm
Okay.
gonna put Joe Montana at number two.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
this
He's the only person
little
that
fun
can be
stats for
over
you.
Mahomes.
Montana, yeah, I mean yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean
Hmm.
it's not a close third, or close third and
No.
fourth. But
Right.
Montana beats him in every single category. It's 4-0.
Hmm.
Mahomes is 3-1. Completion
Yep.
percentage. Montana is 68% compared to Mahomes 66%. Montana threw for 287 yards per game in the Super Bowl. Mahomes threw for an average of 267. And then the big one, Montana, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, compared to
Yeah.
7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. A passer rating of 127.8 for Montana and an 85.2 for Mahomes. Montana clears them in every single important category.
Yeah.
He outside of Brady, he's the best Super Bowl performer of all time at the quarterback position. And honestly, if you look at Mahomes, like he's been outplayed by almost every single quarterback for majority of the game,
Yeah.
and every single one
It's
of his
fair.
Super Bowls. Jimmy Garoppolo
Hmm.
outperformed them, which is sad up
Yeah.
until like the fourth quarter. Um, who else did they play? Tom Brady obviously outperformed him.
Right. Beat him.
Brock Purdy outperformed him for the first 50 to 55 minutes. Jalen
Hmm.
Hurts is the only one where I say I would give it to Mahomes. Jalen Hurts just had the ball longer, and Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts had the fumble that basically ended, like basically the reason why they lost. And so
Yeah.
Mahomes, the reason why he's on there isn't because he's played these amazing Super Bowls. It's that he's had 10-point deficits in every single one of his victories, and it doesn't matter how bad he's performed the entire game. Like for example, for this game, he
Yeah.
was the second best quarterback for 55 minutes, and then he was the best quarterback to ever live for the last 5 to 20 minutes of it. And so that's why I put him as number three, and then number
That's fair. And
four.
I think number three. Before you go to
This
number
was
four.
tough.
Before you go to number four, because those three
Yep.
are obvious. I have those three guys also. Um. Yeah. I'm just curious to see what your fourth is, but it's interesting. I think. Well, I'll let you finish first. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Number four, I'm gonna go Eli Manning.
Oh. Okay.
Simply for the I don't have any of the stats. I don't have any of the stats. I could care less. You beat the greatest quarterback to ever live twice, and you stop an undefeated season, be the greatest
Hmm.
team in the history of the NFL, and you got 2 Super Bowls. I'm going with Eli Manning. He also has one of the most memorable plays, although it's not like necessarily a great throw necessarily, but he had one of the most.
Hmm.
memorable plays, escaping a sack, throwing it to David Tyree's helmet catch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm good. The memories that you have with Eli Manning in the Super Bowl are better than none. Better than all.
Yeah. All right. Well, never mind. I'll take back what I was gonna say because I thought your list was gonna be different. But that's a good list. I
Okay.
like that list. Um, yeah, I like the list. I don't think I really have anything to go against it. Eli Manning is a little bit of a shocker, but like you said, he does have two Super Bowl rings, and he did beat Brady twice.
Mhm.
And there's no denying that. So that's fair. Okay. Into my list, we have a pretty similar list. I didn't do it in order, but I guess I can do it in order. Yeah, Tom Brady's got to be the number one, hands down. Just performances and just quantity, right? As you look at Mahomes, like you were saying, he hasn't had the best performances, but he's won a lot. Brady's had an amazing performance against the Falcons. He's won a lot. He came back with the Bucks, right? He came out of retirement, wherever retirement that was. Won there. Was one with multiple teams. I think he's the only guy on either of our lists that has won with multiple teams. Um, and he was winning like when he was 40, which is just pretty impressive, right? Other than LeBron, like what athlete is winning that late into their career? Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, Brady's got to be number one by a long shot. He's the George Washington, if you want to give him a name for the presidents. My number two here, I actually have Patrick Mahomes as number two. Um,
Mhm.
Montana, I can see your point. I don't know if it needs to be in order, but yeah, I can see your point. Montana is a great player, but I have Mahomes at number two solely for the fear of it. Like Montana, you know he's going to be good.
Yeah.
You know he had a lot of weapons. You know Rice kind of carried some of the games. I think he has an MVP in the Super Bowl.
It's true.
But
It's fair.
yeah, like Mahomes, like even on Sunday, when I was watching the game, I was like Mahomes is going to score. I was texting my brother. I was telling you, I was like Mahomes is going to score. Like they're just going to score. Like you already know he's going to score in overtime, or he's already going to like lead the Chiefs down the field in fourth quarter, right? And it's just like it's inevitable. I think so. I forgot who said it, but someone was like, Mahomes is inevitable, right? He's like the Thanos of the NFL.
Yeah.
That you just know what's going to happen when he has the ball. Um, so yeah, I have him as my number two. Montana is my number three. Very impressive. You got all those stats off the dome. You didn't even look them up. You just remembered from your childhood. But a stat you missed was Montana. He for a while before it was broken by Steve Young had five touchdowns in a game, which is nuts because like especially now,
That's right.
like
Steve
you're
Young
not going
had
to see.
6.
Yeah, he had six, and he's one as a starter. Um, but yeah, Montana had five, which like you can imagine Mahomes threw five touchdowns. Like how on their nuts they would
God.
be on SportsCenter. So
They
yeah,
would never stop talking about it.
yeah, they would never stop. But
If
yeah. So to
Mahomes
me,
played well, just from start to finish, they'd never stop talking about it.
true, true. But yeah, so that's why Montana's on there for me. Multiple Super Bowl victories, Hall of Fame career, like all the stats that you mentioned, right? No interceptions, which is wild. Especially for the amount of games that he went to. It's one thing to have like one game didn't have an interception. I think Drew Brees doesn't have an interception
Tip
in his
pass,
career,
something.
but yeah, for the amount of times he's thrown the ball, for the amount of times he's been there, it's super impressive to not have interceptions. And then yeah, my fourth is actually I was debating going back and forth. You said Eli Manning. Eli Manning was on there for me, but I think I'm actually gonna go. I mentioned his name. I think I'm gonna go Nick Foles on there.
Nick
I think
Foles,
Nick Foles had
the other person to beat Tom Brady.
the other person that beat Brady. Um, I think he had like just the greatest night of his career at the best time possible. You
Yeah.
know, and just to come into the position he was in, right? Just to beat. I mean, talk about David and Goliath, right? With Purdy and Mahomes, that's even more David and Goliath than that, right? So to be able to come play the game that he did, I think he threw for like 375 yards or something like that, right? Outplayed Brady just for that one night. It was just kind of just I don't know. It was like one of those movies like Mike or something like that, where he just gets the skills of like a different player. And yeah, I think just for Super Bowl performances, obviously Nick Foles isn't going to be anywhere near the Hall of Fame or anything like that. Maybe he might if he beats Brady. I don't know. But yeah, I think Nick Foles is up there.
Outside of the 49ers Super Bowls like
Mm-hmm.
losses, that Nick Foles and Eagles victory over the Patriots might have been one of the more painful Super Bowl losses that I've ever had. And so yeah, my ex girlfriend was a huge Eagles fan, and like a week before the game, we broke up, and I just out of this sheer pettiness, I went like full Tom Brady mode, and you freaking let me down. Like the one time
Yeah,
you're gonna lose the Super Bowl is freaking now. So yeah, it was one of the more painful ones. I wasn't involved with the 49ers, so
that sucks because your ex girlfriend's seen 2 Super Bowls and you haven't yet. But it's all right. Yeah, yeah. So I have Nick Foles on there. Eli Manning he's up there. He's up there, but he's just so goofy. I can't really take him seriously. So Nick Foles is mine. But that's a good list. I want to touch on something though. You didn't mention it, but I just want to add it. When we talked about before the show, your pick was John Elway, and I'm glad you didn't say that because that was
it
a
was,
terrible
yeah.
pick. And when you said that,
It
I was
was.
like, "Oh,
I
you're trying
thought
to be
about it, and
funny."
I was like,
Yeah, you're trying to be funny. Oh, cool. Trying to get some clout.
I
But no, that was a terrible pick. Yeah, I think he has like 8 interceptions or something like
thought
that.
about it later.
Um,
It was
he's
a little
garbage.
rough, actually.
He's
But
garbage.
the two in the one he lost a lot, but he won. I was thinking more like those last two,
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
and so I was
Yeah,
looking at the
there's a lot
last
of guys
two.
you
But
could on
yeah,
there. Peyton Manning should
I thought
probably be on
about it. He's
there.
been there.
Yeah,
I
and I'm
mean,
also glad.
he had like one good one,
Maybe I'm also glad you didn't put
and then
Terry
he was
Bradshaw.
carried.
Right, that's true.
Terry
Terry
Bradshaw
Bradshaw.
did. He threw for like 89 yards. One of
Terry
those Super
Bradshaw's
Bowls.
the worst quarterback of all time that gets any kind of like positivity.
He
I'm pretty sure he has more interceptions
literally
than
threw for under
touchdowns.
100 yards.
Yeah, he's
That's
atrocious.
atrocious. I mean, it's a different time. It was a different time. It was a
It was a
different time,
different time.
Chris.
It was a different
You
time.
know, they
But
didn't know
yeah,
how to throw the football
that's
back
true.
then.
That's true. That was like
It
when
was like
the
actual
league was just white
pigskin.
guys. Yeah. All right, that's a good list.
Maybe that
Good
was the
list.
issue.
What? It was
So,
just too many white guys.
I think there's too many white people. So
Okay.
we
All
played
right.
flag football the other day, and I was literally
Mhm.
for church, and I literally looked at one of our like coach, and I was like, "Bro, we need more black people on this team. This is you're just getting burnt out here like toast. This is outrageous."
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean, that's why
so
it's so
I think
impressive what
we have
CMC
one more
does.
topic, right?
Yeah, we do. We got one more thing
Borderline
here.
superhero out here.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So the season's
Well,
over.
I mean,
Oh, go
mhm.
ahead. Um,
No, go
yeah, the
ahead. Go
season's
ahead. I think
over.
we're going the same place.
Okay, season's over. Great, another year of football. A lot of cool storylines this year. Um, yeah. So my question, not really a question, but just topic, right? What are some surprises and some disappointments from this year in the NFL? Why don't you give me 2 surprises first, and then I'll share mine, and then we'll go into
Well,
disappointments.
how about we do? How about you take this? Do you want to just do the surprises and I'll do the disappointments, or do you want us to do the whole thing just for time wise?
I can do the surprises. Yeah, I'll just do surprises. You do the
Okay,
disappointments. Okay.
I'll do the disappointments. So you
Um,
do the go ahead and give us your two biggest surprises.
okay. Yeah. I don't know. One of mine actually is recent, and I wasn't gonna put it on here until Sunday, but I'll start off with that since we've been talking about the 49ers a lot. One of my disappointments of the year, and I know you love him, but it's Kyle Shanahan. I just feel like they blew their opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Just some questionable calls. We didn't talk about it, but even just the way they were playing at the end, right? Playing so soft, having so much spacing where Mahomes just eating them up in the middle. I just feel like there was just I don't know, like he had to at a certain point take over the play calling from the defensive coordinator and just kind of trust his instincts. And I don't feel like he did that. I mentioned in our last episode recording that he tends to outthink himself, and I think that's what he did again. Right, he forgot to
Mm-hmm.
run the football. It's disappointing. It's disappointing as a 49ers fan. It's disappointing as a lot of people hate the Chiefs. They hate Taylor Swift, right? They hate everything that they stand for. So it's disappointing to see the Chiefs win again. Not that it's all Kyle Shanahan's fault, but yeah, just
No.
disappointing for me. There's obviously bigger ones, but a little bit of a homer take. Shanahan is one of my uh, disappointment. I was supposed to do surprises, huh?
You were supposed to do surprises, but I let you roll with it.
All right. Sorry. Maybe just do both then. Sorry. I
This
gotta.
will just be like yeah. Good.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I just have a lot of hate for Kyle Shanahan right now. But yeah, my other
I understand.
disappointment this
It's still a
year.
little too soon.
Yeah, my other point disappointment this year, and it's kind of been a disappointment every year for the past few years, is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I don't have any expectations for the Cowboys. The Eagles were disappointing
No.
this year. They fell apart. But yeah, just like Josh Allen and the Bills, man, they're just like I don't know, like they're kind of like the Dodgers, right? Where they're just a great team, all the talent in the world, and then they get to the playoffs and they just choke, right? They're kind of like the Clippers, right? Great team, never wins anything. And it just sucks. Like you want the Bills to win. Like I want the Bills to win a Super Bowl. If I was any other team other than the 49ers, it would be the Bills. And it just sucks that they just can't get over that
Mhm.
hump. Allen seems to be allergic to beating Mahomes, right? He's his little brother. And I don't know. It's just one
Yeah.
of those things that it's just disappointing year after year because I don't know what they do, right? Like, what do you change for the Bills in order to be able to beat, the Chiefs, or even a down year like beating the Bengals, right? And Joe Burrow's going to come back next year healthy. They didn't have to worry about the Bengals this year, and they still couldn't make it to the Super Bowl. So yeah, just disappointing from them. Um, yeah, what are some of your disappointments this year?
My two my two big disappointments are the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hmm,
They were 8-3 going into Week 13.
they
They
were.
lose five of their last six and go from potentially being the number one seed in the AFC to just like completely missing the playoffs,
Yeah,
and to get eliminated from the playoffs by these 6-11 Tennessee Titans is such just like a sad way to go out. And so, I mean, I think they were moving in the right direction after the comeback victory against the Chargers, which I called to the T, by the way, 2 years ago.
hmm,
I called the exact comeback when it hit halftime for that game. But I think they were moving in the right direction. We have Trevor Lawrence, who's supposed to be like the most touted college prospect since Peyton Manning, and like he just didn't like really do a whole ton this year. And like they gave
no,
him a little extra, like even Calvin Ridley, who played really well. He started to turn up a little bit more towards the end of the season, but they also started losing just all their games. And so that was probably the most disappointing. I think they get one more year with I can't the head coach's name escapes me. But I think they gave him one more year, and then they'd probably have to move in a different direction at that point. So you can't move on from Trevor.
yeah,
He's too valuable of an asset, and so. But yeah, that was probably one of the more disappointing teams. And then the second one is it's a disappointment as like they're the biggest disappointment in the NFL,
hmm
but one of the most satisfying, one of the most gratifying things I got to watch all year long, which was the Philadelphia Eagles going 10-1, and then getting completely bent by the
hmm
San Francisco 49ers,
yeah,
proving that they were frauds to be in the Super Bowl last year. And it was very fitting for them to lose. I mean, when I think they went on to lose, they went 1-6, including the playoffs
yeah,
over the
one
next like
six.
7 games. It was very fitting that the Eagles ended the Niners season last year because the 49ers essentially ended theirs this year and ended all hope moving forward. Like
Yeah,
my hot take for next year, by the way, they missed
hmm
the playoffs. That team
wow,
lost their entire soul after that game. They have no faith in
and
Jalen
Kelsey's gone too.
Hurts. They have
Yeah,
no
Kelsey's
faith
gone.
in Don Sirianni. That
Mm-hmm.
team, watching them in the playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were down by like 7. They looked like they were down by 40. Like they looked
Yeah.
so ready to be home. They looked like they were done. Jason Kelsey just retired, so the leadership's
Yep.
out the door. I never
Mm-hmm.
want to hear Jalen Hurts being one of the best leaders in the NFL ever again. That was an
Yeah, he's
atrocious
goofy.
take. He's not. He just stands there like he doesn't care what's happening the entire time and speaks in
Mm-hmm.
Instagram quotes. Like you're not,
I
you're
was just about to
not
say
a
that. I was
good
just about to say
leader.
that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like just because you can quote
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of random things doesn't mean you're a good leader. Like he was getting
Yeah.
yelled at and lit up from AJ Brown and I think his tight end just lighting him
Mm-hmm.
up on the bench. And you just have nothing to say. You're just staring off into space. I'm like, because you know you don't belong here.
Yeah.
Like you know you're like surprised. You were as surprised as everybody else that you made it to the Super Bowl last year. Like, oh shoot, this is crazy. This is wild. And but yeah, no, they're and the best thing about it is they're stuck with them.
Yeah. They
My
paid
favorite
him.
thing about it is
Mm-hmm.
that for the next 4 to 5 years, they're gonna be in the same boat. They're just gonna get worse.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. That's the most satisfying
Yeah.
thing to me.
Yeah. That whooping the 49ers gave him
I'm
was
really
so bad.
petty,
Yeah.
so
I know. I know. That whooping was so bad. You almost texted your ex girlfriend again, huh?
I'm gonna risk that. So, uh,
Okay.
biggest surprise. What's your biggest surprise? Now that we've gotten all the negativity out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. My two
We
big
may have the same
surprises.
ones.
Maybe. Um, yeah. My biggest surprise. It's more of a theme, I guess. Just the resurgence of quarterbacks that were kind of like written off. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, the seasons that they had. Um, even to an extent, Jordan Love. Not that he was written off, but just for a long time they weren't sure if he was the guy.
He's getting there.
Um,
After three
yeah.
seasons, they were
So
writing him off.
yeah. But yeah, just the resurgence. I think Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, and Love all making the playoffs right in the same year. Nuts. Mayfield kind of reminds me of like a non-Christian Tim Tebow, where he's just like you kind of like it when he makes it to the playoffs, but he's not really that good.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
so I had Baker as my comeback
It's
player
a
of the
great
year.
take.
Obviously, it went to Joe Flacco, which well deserved. Coming off his couch and just won him some games, led him to the playoffs. Um, yeah, so I think that's one of my surprises because I definitely did not. I think I had went back in my phone like a year and a half ago. I sent you a text just like hating on Baker because I used to like Baker a lot when he
Mm-hmm.
was in college and when he was coming out of college. I used to like him a lot. I just liked his cocky personality. Um, and I remember just hating on him, like, why is he still in the league? You know? And he proved me wrong. I don't think he's like gonna win a Super Bowl anytime soon, but he's a cool
No,
player to
God
have.
no.
I think he's dispelled those like Johnny Manziel 2.0 rumors, which is good for him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's my big surprise there is the resurgence of quarterbacks, and then my other surprise, um, I mean, it's not really a surprise because they do it every year. It's just how bad the Cowboys suck. Like they just don't do anything with their talent. And it's just like everything's so
What a
surprising, right? It's
joke.
just surprising that they just won't fire their coach, right? They just continue to keep Doug Prescott. Like that's what's surprising to me. He's like, how do you not see it's time to move on, right? It's time to change things up. Um, yeah, I love when the Cowboys lose. I love when they have great seasons and everyone's like, it's our year. And then they get smacked,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they lose again. Um, so not really a surprise, but as my surprise, I had it. I think you also had it too. Cowboys 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And
I did. I said that after
yeah,
week one, like a
right.
dummy.
Yeah. So I had
Like a
expectations for the
dummy, I said
Cowboys.
that.
I don't know why I had expectations for the Cowboys, but I also did for the Eagles. So I guess maybe it's the NFC in general. That's the surprise is that they were as weak as they were because the Cowboys and Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
For a second, I thought, hey, maybe they're going to be the two teams in the NFC, not even the 49ers, right? So yeah, pretty weak NFC this year. That's my surprise. What about you?
I have two. One's kind of the same. It's just very more specific with Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. Yeah, the fact that they did as well as they did. I mean, not that they were world beaters by any means, but they made the playoffs as the NFC South. So, I mean, there's that. There's a little caveat there, like someone had to win it,
Yeah.
and so. But like good for them. Like I was excited to see that. That was cool to see Baker. He has kind of turned the script on how people view him and how people look at him. I think kind of the same feeling of people just kind of were annoyed that he had kind of all this like commercial success before he did
Mm-hmm.
anything like in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
and now getting passed around a little bit and getting cut from the like getting traded from the Browns, like of all places. Like
Yeah.
you were the only quarterback for like years to win them a playoff game and then get rid of you. Now the Browns are reaping that ever so joyfully, and
Yeah. Watson's just been
but
a
yeah, for them to be able to kind
headache.
of turn the pages and oh yeah, it's just the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And then be able to go to the Rams, like kind of revive his career, get a starting
Yeah, he balled
job.
out there.
Um, but Tampa, yeah, he bought out. It was cool. It was cool to watch. He's a fun player to watch. Like I like the way he plays. He talks smack while on the field. I can enjoy that, and like
Yeah.
I'll root for him. Like you said, I don't think
Yeah.
he's not going to win a Super Bowl anytime ever.
No.
But like I'll root for him. That's cool. And I had to change my second one because I put CJ Stroud, which I guess isn't necessarily a surprise because I thought he was going to be
Mm.
pretty good. But I think I'm
Yeah.
more generally surprised just with the entire Texans organization. Uh,
Yeah.
they were just like not good at doing anything.
No.
Like they were a joke of an organization. And I'm really happy for D'Amico Ryans. I think I'm so sad that he left because I'm not a fan of Steve Wilkes. I'll tell you that. But I'm very excited for D'Amico Ryans. I think he's a great head coach. I think he's a great leader of men in general. And he was like, you know what, I'm not gonna be bad. And where he traded up, got CJ Stroud. I think they traded up. I got CJ Stroud, and I mean, he is something special. And I think between the AFC is just unreal with Mahomes, obviously, Burrow, Allen, CJ Stroud, Lamar Jackson. Like, it is just never ending with the amount of talent that's in there. But
Yeah.
I do think Joe Burrow, if he can stay healthy, I think he'll stay at that number two spot. But I think Allen and Lamar Jackson, I think they're gonna have to be really careful that if the Texans do what I think they should do, which is be very aggressive this offseason and give him weapons, try to make an in-season trade, maybe try to trade for like AJ Brown middle of the year when the Eagles start tanking,
Mm-hmm.
and give him some good weapons. I think those other quarterbacks, Allen and Lamar Jackson, should start being very concerned about their pecking order in the AFC because he's coming for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a baller. Um, those are good surprises. Yeah. It's interesting to see, too. I think the Texans had both offensive player or offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. Obviously, a great coach in Ryan's. Yeah, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with moving forward. And
Yeah,
well, I think it's going to be a pretty wide open AFC moving. With the injuries, just AFC is so stacked right now.
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Okay, those are good surprises. I have a lot of faith in CJ Stroud. I think he's going to be. And it's interesting you say that. I don't know if he's going to be there next year, but he's definitely going to be top three. I think in the next few years here. So
I
maybe
agree.
that's a list for another time. But yeah. So I don't know if we have too much more to go over. I think that was a good show.
I think we're
Mm,
good. Yeah, we had a good time, and that was good. That was good. Yeah, I think we'll close it out with that. NFL season is officially over, so this was our last big NFL talk. The
yep.
NBA season has basically officially started. Nobody cares before the NFL season. In
No.
season tournament was that was cool. It's
Cool for
cool.
Lakers. Yeah.
Clearly,
Hmm.
it meant nothing. Yeah, I mean, like the fact that the Lakers won and they're terrible. shows like it's kind of a
Yeah.
weird, like a weird tournament, and
Yeah.
so LeBron just wanted to add to his legacy. And
They put up a banner
but yeah, that was
in,
cool. But
in
yeah,
crypto.
they did put up a banner.
Mm.
Yeah,
Something you
and
don't know anything
so
about
yeah,
is King
we'll start
Sven.
talking about the. We don't. We have a Western, whatever it is, the Western Pacific West champions.
Oh, yeah,
We have
that's
two of
cute.
those.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we got two of those bad boys up in there. We got
Okay.
a lot of
A runner
jerseys.
up.
We
Yeah,
got a
runner
lot
up
of
jersey.
jerseys
Okay.
hung up. And so, yeah, this is why the Super Bowl losing the Super Bowl doesn't hurt that bad. I'm pretty used to being just disappointed
Yeah.
my entire sports life, and so yeah, it's pretty rough. But yeah, football season's done. Basketball season's coming up. We're gonna start talking about the MMA. I know you're a huge MMA guy, so you're gonna be leading a
Yep.
lot of those conversations. We'll go back and forth. Hopefully, the Lakers can make the playoffs. Maybe we'll have a Lakers Kings playoff series. That'll be really cool. We can get some bets going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, the NBA season here, All Star games coming up. We're ready for it.
Yeah. 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 It's gonna be cool. Just talking about all those different types of things. Like we said, we're gonna be covering football still, even in the off season. Basketball, MMA,
Yeah,
bunch of random lists, segments that we have cooking. So, yeah, give us a follow on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube and Spotify at thedad.pod. If you have any suggestions, any segments you want to see, if you want to be a guest, if you want to be a hater, doesn't matter. Follow,
yeah.
support.
We'll be doing call-ins later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be cool.
Yeah, so it was a good first long format session. And I'm sorry that it was a disappointing one. I was really hoping we'd be smoking cigars, drinking alcohol, celebrating a 49ers victory at your house, just off the
I
Grey
know.
Goose. But maybe next year. Maybe next year when both our babies are there, we'll have them in little jerseys, and it'll be a good time, hopefully.
I did learn one thing. This last comment before we close out. The next Super Bowl that the 49ers are in, I think I learned a lot from this one. And
Mm-hmm.
to deal with the emotions, regardless of what happens, I just have to be like 3 glasses of whiskey in. It
That's
made it
fair.
so much easier during
Well,
the
you spilled your
game.
whiskey.
It
Yeah,
made
you
it
spilled your
much
whiskey.
easier after.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I on that touchdown from Juwan Jennings, I spilled a little bit, and so, but it makes the process a little less stressful. So I've learned. I'm starting to learn some stuff. I'm growing as a sports fan.
You are growing. You are growing. Even just having the baby there probably helps you a lot too. You weren't as quiet or as
It does.
introverted as you were a couple years ago when they lost, and you didn't want to talk to anybody for like
It's
4 days. But
rough.
yeah, check us out. Stay tuned for more content coming up. This has been the Dad Pod. We're signing out.